Guys, so yesterday I was at a local fishing spot in a public park and I saw this pond I was fishing had a creek that the pond had a spillway into. It would dump into the creek if the pond got too full. So anyway, having no luck in the pond, I think the pond is fished out and just waiting to be restocked by the wildlife department. I decided I'm going to. Where is it? There they are. Lost my scissors over there. Put you back where you belong. So I went to the pond, and there's a few deep pools, and I tried to catch some bluegill, but they were up to my game, and they wasn't having what I was throwing. So I decided to walk on down. Here's what I found. There are two very large bass living in a relatively large deep pool in this creek, and they were not biting on what I was wanting to throw. So I decided, you know what? It's time to come back here and let's tie up a little minnow jig and catch these suckers. Now all I did there is I took some bucktail, trimmed it off, and then pulled the short fibers out. Okay. So now I'm gonna take this, bam. Let's run this sucker right up to the head of this jig. After I make a mess of all these fibers, get back in there. You get back in there. And I lost a couple over here. Get back in there. I'm gonna trim you off. Back to straight. Bam, just like that. Now, play nice. And a couple loose securing wraps so I can position these bucktails where I want them. That's where I want them, so now I'm going to secure them down, wrapping towards the head. You'll see how this bucktail is going to fray apart like that. And now I'm just going to pinch that forward, give it a few wraps there, roll that up towards the head. Now I'm going to roll it all back. Okay, all I'm doing is rolling it back. I'm going to wrap those back to the bend in the shank. And that's pretty much it. I'm sure there's an easier way, but for me, for what I'm doing right now, I'll just trim these loose guys up so they don't poke through the chenille. And let's get some flash on there. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is use green flash. See if you can see that green flash. So on this green flash, I'm going to tie on 4 strands. So I'm going to find the end of my flash here. Come now, right there. Get it about as long as the tail. Put a bend in that. And I'm going to bend it back over. Nah. Boom. Okay. I'm going to bend that back over and over again. I'm going to take these 2 loops that I created, put them right in front of, and grab my scissors and get rid of this tag in now because it's going to mess with me. Boom. Goodbye, long piece. So with this here, I'm going to take the loop and then the 2 tag ends, separate them with my fingers. So that way when I roll it back, I'll have 2 strands on one side and 2 strands on the other side. but I'm not ready for that yet. So let's get them back, loop them in front of the thread, pinch them off between two fingers, and right in front of the thread. Now I'm going to secure those. As I secure them, I'm going to roll them back, separating them with my two fingers. Now I can pinch everything back and give it a good tight secure wrap. Now I have two strands on the left side, two strands on the right side. Okay, and I'm going to take my scissors here, cut my loop off. So now I have 4 individual strands, and those look pretty good. Let's get our chenille tied on. So the chenille I'm using today is going to be a white chenille. I know why you're using black thread, right? Because it was already on the spool, that's why. So let's get our chenille pinned down. Boom, boom, boom. Nice and tight. Roll that sucker to the head. Let that hang. Now, I'm going to tie this relatively tight and create a nice body. Now you don't want this coming undone later on. I've never had one do it because I've always tied them tight. But if you want a loose body, then keep in mind that you're running the risk of that sucker coming undone later. And if you're catching fish on it, the last thing you want it to do is to come unraveled. So just give it a nice good tug every once in a while. And I got slippery butterfingers today, my goodness. Okay, do another wrap there. One more at the head. Get everything back. Now, I'm going to cross the chenille in front of the thread. Wrap it once. Wrap it twice. Throw that chenille to the back. 1, 2. And let's trim off this chenille. Bam. Gone. Alright, so I have 2 strands of silver. Green flash on each side, and they are just a tad long. Let's trim those up, and then we have a white chenille body and a white painted head. Now, I don't use powder paint yet. I haven't got into that. These are just my personal use lures. I'm using nail polish, and it works. Okay, don't buy the cheap stuff. Get the good Sally Henson's nail polish, and it'll be fine for you. Okay, so now here's the step. I'm kind of doing a green thing. Now, let's skip that next step. Let's go ahead and put our whip finish on. Give yourself some thread, hook the sucker up, spin this. 3, 4, 5. Get it off the back, bring it up to the front, pull this out, pull that down. Alright, let's trim this up. And before I put the Sally Henson's Hard as Nails on, I'm going to take a green Sharpie. Yes, I said a green Sharpie. Now, the green Sharpie, I'm going to pull this bucktail together. I'm going to give it a stripe on this side and a stripe on this side. Come back, give it a stripe on this side, stripe on this side. Come back, give it a stripe on this side, stripe on this side, and continue the process all the way down this tail that I'll probably trim up later. Alright, can you see what happened there? With just a Sharpie, a permanent marker, a permanent pen, I was able to put some banding, some striping on that tail. Now, what's great is, with this white chenille, I can also do it here. Little band, little band, little band, little band. I don't think I spin the sucker around. Yeah, so let's finish these bands. Now, of course, it's going to show up better on the chenille because you have more direct contact. It's more fibers that you're connecting. That bucktail is going to fade out and kind of get a little thin. There, so I just put 2 green rings on my white chenille with a green Sharpie. So there is my green and white bucktail jig with green flash. Well, that guy right there, he's just, you know, when that hits the water, that'll probably do okay. That'll probably do okay. Right now, he's just kind of floppy. Probably too long. So here's the thing. If that looks too long for you, because whenever this gets wet, it's going to clump up. If that's too long for you, when you get to the water, just snip it off at an angle. Okay? And it should do fine. If you're not getting a good hookup because you think the tail's too long, trim it off at an angle. You can fix this at the water. Alright? So there's that. There's the green one. Now I'm going to go ahead and tie up a black one. Same lure, same everything, just using a black Sharpie. Let's knock over our Sally Hensons and continue. So I got this rolled back, bam, bam. Let's get our bucktail pulled back together. I need to make me a hair stacker. That's what I need to do. Make me a hair stacker. That'll be an upcoming project. Alright, let's try this again. Always nick the tip of that hook, break your thread. It's okay, just throw it in the trash. Just rethread it and start a new thread base. Basically, all you need to do. You're going to capture everything you just laid down. You're going to go right on top of the thread that you just worked. You're going to go right over all the stuff that you just laid down, and bam, just like that, everything is locked in. Now you can leave this rough stuff. I do find that it tends to poke through the chenille, but it's your call. Trim it up, leave it there. I don't care. This is your jig. You tie it how you want to tie it. And I don't think I have any black, so I could do a silver. I already have a gold on the table. We can do a gold. Let's park gold right here. I mean, it's already out. Silver. I'm thinking let's grab a silver. Let's make silver happen. Gold, you go back over there where I had you. Alright, so basically, since I use these 4-foot long pieces of flash, use what you have. I'm going to get that as long as the tail, bend it over, bend it back over, and then loop that right in front of the thread. Give that a couple securing wraps. Now I'm just going to take my scissors. We'll just snip all that off. Find my two. Oh, I still have a loop in there. Let's get rid of that loop. And let's grab our two here and our two between these two fingers, and let's roll them back. 2 strands on each side. Give that a good secure wrap. So now we have bucktail with silver flash. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but that's okay. It's in there. Take our white chenille, drop it in here. Right about here. Now I'm taking the chenille to the end of the collar. I could have trimmed that collar off, which at that point I would have run the chenille all the way up to the head to help build up that body. But since I have a collar and I have this tail material, I'm just going to run the chenille to the end of the collar. Make sense? Hope it does. I'm just trying to build up a body to kind of fill in that spot where the collar ends, and the material I'm tying kind of evens out a little bit. Now it's okay. In fact, it's perfect that the collar is taller and thicker than the body material that I tied in, because that'll put in a nice taper on the jig's body anyway. And if you look at a minnow, it tapers down towards the tail. So that's that. Alright, so let's run that thread to the head. Let's wrap this chenille. Boom. Keeping the chenille tight. I'm just hitting that hook point every time I wrap anything on this guy. So I don't want this coming undone in the water. So this sucker is going down tight. I have one chenille that's a little frustrating to me because the fibers that are wrapped around the thread core tend to separate. It's frustrating. You cannot get a tight wrap on it. Alright, so there's that. Let's get our whip finish on. Tighten up our thread, snip that thread. Now, instead of, maybe reposition you guys, instead of green Sharpie, I'm going to pull all this fiber back. We're using black Sharpie. So I'm going to pull all this fiber. I'm going to give it a nip here. There. Come back about 1/4 inch or so. There and there. Come back about 1/4 inch or so. Couple stripes there. Here. Put as much or as little on as you want. This is your tie. This is your jig. You do it your way. Okay? See how that turned out? Now, I'm going to spin this guy. No, I'm not. I'm just going to reference right about there. Right about there. Now, we'll just bring these body stripes on around to here and to here. Alright, so there we go. Got 2 on the body, got them on the tail, and I have silver flash in there. So we got our black one, we got our green one, and these will hopefully resemble, when this bucktail gets wet, I know it's gross, man. Hopefully when this bucktail gets wet, she'll resemble a minnow zipping through that water. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and just at a slight angle. Just go ahead and nip that. So when this dries, it'll have that slight, not really tapered angle. I'm not waiting until I get to the water. Alright, so there we go. So we're going to try these. I might trim this up at the water, but this one here, that was just way too long. I'm not going to trim that up at the water. So, let's see if that will pull those 2 bass out of the creek that I saw. Let's see if we can catch old Mr. Bass. You know, that is just, you're just going to bug me. I'm just going to go ahead and trim you off right now because you're just bugging me. Alright, so we had 2 minnow lures. Let's give them a try at the water and see if we can't pull those bass in. Now these bass, bam. So these bass, what we're doing here is there's 2 bass living in a creek, and I don't know. I feel like I need to get those bass out of that creek because we've had such a hot winter. I think we're going to have a hot summer And I think that that pool eventually is going to dry up, and those bass are going to be left stranded in 2 inches of water. Now, since there is a pond, and you'll see in the Hunter Park video when it gets posted, you'll see there's a pond. It's a fishing pond stocked by the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife that is just right there. So if I catch these two fish, these two bass, and carry them up and release them into that pond, that should provide a better home for them. So when that pool in that creek dries up, they won't suffer their demise, you know? So I feel like as a fisherman, it's my responsibility to proactively save those bass